The internet was not expecting this. Because out of nowhere, Gigi Hadid just broke her silence after her name appeared in the newly resurfaced Jeffrey Epstein files. And what she said, it didn't just shut people up, it actually raised even more questions. Because this isn't just about one email. It's about why one of the most powerful and controversial figures in modern history was even talking about her in the first place. And once you hear what was actually written, you'll understand why people are so unsettled right now. It all starts with a new wave of documents released by the U.S. Department of Justice, files connected to Jeffrey Epstein, a name that still sends chills through Hollywood and beyond. For years, Epstein's case has been surrounded by secrecy, speculation, and a long list of powerful connections. Even after his arrest in 2019 and his death just weeks later, the story never really ended. If anything, it just went quiet. Until now. Because these newly resurfaced documents are pulling names back into the spotlight, some expected, and some completely unexpected. And that's where things take a turn. Buried inside a 2015 email exchange, Gigi Hadid's name appears. Not in a headline. Not in an accusation. But in a conversation that many people are now calling deeply uncomfortable. In the email, a redacted individual directly asks Epstein a question that feels oddly invasive. How did Gigi Hadid and her sister become so successful in the modeling world? At first glance, it almost sounds like gossip. But then the responses start to get strange. Epstein replies. The exact wording is vague, but what comes next is what really caught people's attention. The individual responds back with a claim, suggesting that their father may have paid modeling agencies to boost their careers. And then Epstein answers again. No. Simple. Direct. But then he adds something that has been replayed over and over across social media. They follow directions. It's that simple. That one line alone? It completely changed the tone of the conversation. Because now people weren't just reading an email. They were trying to interpret what it meant. What directions? What kind of context was he speaking in? And why was he even discussing them at all? Almost instantly, the internet started doing what it does best, speculating. Clips started circulating. Screenshots spread across platforms. And suddenly, Gigi Hadid, someone who has never been publicly linked to Epstein, was being pulled into a narrative she had nothing to do with. At first, she said nothing. No statement. No clarification. No reaction. And that silence? It didn't go unnoticed. In fact, it made things worse. Because online, silence rarely stays neutral. It turns into suspicion. Into questions. Into pressure. People began commenting under her posts. Some confused. Some supportive. Others demanding answers. Why hasn't she addressed this? Does she even know? Is she ignoring it? The pressure kept building, until one comment finally pushed things over the edge. On March 29, under one of her Instagram posts, a user wrote that they had to unfollow her because she hadn't spoken about the Epstein files. And that's when Gigi responded. Not with a press release. Not with a PR statement. But directly. Publicly. In her own words. She said the documents made her feel sick to her stomach. Let that sink in. Not defensive. Not dismissive. Sick. She explained how disturbing it was to read someone she had never met speaking about her in that way, especially in such a dark and serious context. And then she addressed the silence. She said she chose not to speak initially because she didn't want to take attention away from the real victims of Epstein. That line? It shifted the tone instantly. Because now, this wasn't about clearing her name for the sake of reputation, it was about respecting the gravity of the situation. But at the same time, she acknowledged something important. That maybe her silence wasn't being understood the way she intended. And that's why she spoke. She made it clear, unequivocally. That she has never had any affiliation with Epstein. Ever. No connection. No meeting. Nothing. And then, she went one step further. Because this wasn't just about denying involvement. It was about addressing the implication behind that email. The suggestion that her success came from something other than hard work. So she brought up her background. Her upbringing. Her family. She talked about being raised by Mohammed Hadid and Yolanda Hadid, acknowledging that yes, she grew up privileged. But she didn't stop there. She emphasized that her parents protected her. That they taught her discipline. Work ethic. Boundaries. And that when she signed with a modeling agency back in 2012, everything that followed came from consistent effort. Every shoot. Every runway. Every campaign. Earned. Not handed. It was a subtle but important shift. Because now, she wasn't just responding to Epstein's comments, she was reclaiming her narrative. Still, even after her response, one question refuses to go away. Why was Epstein talking about her at all? Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Being mentioned in those documents doesn't mean involvement. But it does mean proximity, in conversation. And that alone is enough to make people uneasy. Epstein was known for operating in elite circles, surrounded by power, wealth, and influence. His network extended into industries like finance, politics, and yes, entertainment and fashion. So when a name like Gigi Hadid appears, even casually, it forces people to confront something deeper. How often were celebrities being discussed behind closed doors, without ever knowing it? How many conversations like this existed? And how many of them will never be seen? That's the part that lingers. Because while Gigi has made her position crystal clear, the existence of that email opens a door that can't be fully closed. A reminder of how far Epstein's shadow actually reached. And how even now, years later, those ripples are still hitting people who had nothing to do with him. It also highlights something else, the speed at which narratives form online. One document. One quote. One moment taken out of context. And suddenly, someone is forced to defend themselves against something they were never part of. In this case, Gigi pushed back. Directly. Firmly. And without hesitation. But not everyone gets that chance. And that's what makes this situation so complicated. Because on one hand, you have a model saying she had zero connection to one of the most infamous criminals in modern history. And on the other, you have a document that proves her name was being discussed in his orbit. Both things can be true. And that's where the discomfort comes from. Because this story isn't really about Gigi Hadid. It's about what happens when powerful people talk, and the rest of the world only hears fragments. It's about how those fragments can reshape narratives overnight. And it's about how, even years later, the Epstein case continues to pull unexpected names into the spotlight. Gigi has said her piece. She's drawn a clear line. But the bigger question still hangs in the air. If this is what we're seeing now, what else hasn't been uncovered? Because if history has shown anything, it's that stories like this don't just disappear. They evolve. And this might just be another chapter.